Welcome back to the IndyCar Podcast, guys. And like we promised, we are back for a season review with a special guest here. And it is, of course, Marshall Pruett from the Racer magazine. Marshall, thank you so much for coming on. And how are you doing today?
That's way too much energy. It's not going to work. Stop it. The season's over. Things are well. It's a Friday. It's about 2 p.m. I've got one of the regular visitors to my own podcast, our cat Rocky. He is currently snoring in the sun, and his sister Rosie is sitting behind me waiting to jump up and claw my head, also known as a normal day in the Pruett household. So things are well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
That's all right. We know as an owner of 3 cats ourselves that they are often vying for the limelight in very peculiar ways.
Absolutely.
It's what they do. But unfortunately, Marshall, I have one mode, and that apparently is energy. And Stephen has to calm me down at times. He's like, look, chill. Like you said, the season's over. But so Stephen feels your pain if my energy is overbearing at times.
Good man, Stephen. Good. Just smack him every now and then. It makes for good viewing.
So obviously, like you said, we are at the end of this 2021 season in IndyCar, and what a fantastic kind of ride it was. There's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster, I would say, for many of the drivers, fans alike, high moments, surprise moments, and going from there. We'll start off with you. Obviously, we'll be nice, just throw you right on the spot. What was your general thoughts of the season? Was it one of your favorite out there in recent memory?
One of the greatest IndyCar seasons we have had in quite some time, all thanks to the lack of predictability. If we look back to last year, Takuma Sato winning the Indy 500 was amazing, right? Not a total shock since he'd done that before, but Takuma winning the 2020 Indy 500 was awesome, added to his legacy. We had some pretty cool stuff in terms of Joseph Newgarden and Colton Herta taking shots and trying to topple Scott Dixon. But if we look at last season as a bit of a standard of reference to how we should judge this season, Scott freaking Dixon led the standings from the first race to the last. Had never done it before. And again, it's not as if he didn't have any lows among the many highs, but won a bunch of races, led the thing from start to finish. Right? Awesome. Yeah. Great for him. Just if we're thinking about this critically from an entertainment standpoint. This year, someone said, that ain't happening. That's not going to be the story this year. No, this kid from Spain who we really don't know, and we're not exactly sure how to pronounce his name, and why the hell is he smiling all the time, and where did this predilection for fried chicken come from? Like, what? Why did Ganassi hire him? He didn't do enough in 2020 to really make anyone go, oh my gosh, we're going to throw all the money we have at him, future IndyCar champion. Nobody was saying that thing about Alex Palou. Folks weren't criticizing him, saying he lacked talent, but he was the biggest question mark in the field. Hey, little flourishes of potential, and you did, some cool things here or there, but didn't exactly set the world on fire race after race after race. Ganassi needed someone to replace the outgoing Felix Rosenquist. Felix left, right? Wasn't fired, wasn't dropped. He chose to leave. Needed someone to backfill that spot. Really was nobody on the market that jumped out, guys, as like, oh, we're going to get that person, and they are just going to be amazing for us. So nonetheless, there were a couple things they liked about Alex Palou. Asked Chip Ganassi, I think last week, what was it? And he said, honestly, it was Indy 500. That kid didn't seem to be fazed by Indianapolis as a rookie. There's nothing about it that seemed to scare him. That's a big thing to build from. And speak with some of the other folks in and around the team, and they said, hey, he pulled off an amazing pass here at this place that really caught my attention. And who knows, it could have been for 9th place, whatever it was. But there's just some little items that stood out. And they said, all right, well, I don't know if he's going to be the guy, but it seems like there's something there. and we have a vacancy. Probably not going to cost us a fortune to hire him. So we'll give it a whirl. If it doesn't work, 2022, probably be somebody else that comes up on the market. And he's our new champion, guys. Okay? He's our new champion. This is crazy. Then you throw in Pato O'Ward, not just winning once, but twice. His first win on the Texas Oval came from not just cruising around, dominating the day. It was him doing Pato things, charging through, making side-by-side contact, not on the straights, but in the corners, and doing all kinds of crazy Pato things. Colton, I'm just saying, any driver leaving the 2021 season that is not deathly afraid of what Colton might do next season is kidding themselves. That kid, I realize that he threw away a potential win at Nashville, but that kid took more or less the last 3 or 4 races of the year and made them absolutely his own, just decimated the field. So there should be a lot of fear going on there. Marcus Erickson, right? Old codger, came over from F1 when, bad teams are no longer interested in having him. That guy's just washed up. Hey, no, you're 5th in the standings for a decent portion of the season. I think he fell to 6th, but got a couple of wins, drove like heck, was super consistent, finally reached what we would say is, his potential, or came very close to it. A guy who, 30 years old for the majority of the year, guys? And we're having to look at him and lend serious respect to what he did. Keep working down the entry list. Keep working down the standings. And at almost every stop, you will have something remarkable to say about someone and what they did this season in terms of high achievement or grand failure or something in the middle. And for so many of the participants in 2021 IndyCar Championship, they contributed to this, as you said, roller coaster of drama. Who and what is going to happen next? Just as a close here to this opening question, that is the dream. As a person who makes a living writing stories, telling stories, looking for themes, looking for arcs, this is what you pray for. Kneel down next to your bed each night before the new season starts. Lord, please give me total lack of predictability. Throw some names towards the front out of nowhere. Take some names that we have really no reason to consider and let them shine. Let some who we always rely upon and think are going to be up there fall short. Let all these things happen and create this amazing, I don't know what's going to happen when the green flag waves environment from race to race. I don't want to say that happened at every single round, but at the vast majority, that's what we were blessed with. So as I told Penske Entertainment CEO Mark Miles yesterday, this year was so good, I'm already somewhat fearful next year is going to be a letdown, because I don't know how we really improve upon what we just had happen. And a 46-year-old became a 4-time winner of the Indy 500 in the middle of all this. It's just, this is
that was a small moment, Marshall. Just a little moment. I don't know if anyone really paid attention to it.
Some old codger again, kind of got lucky. That's going around in circles, I guess. But anyways, guys, I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm just telling you honestly, I'm struggling to think of a season in recent memory, not just NTT IndyCar series, but kart, champ car, you name it. I mean, I'm thinking almost 20 years ago, really right around the last time, 2021, 22 years ago, where it was like, oh man, cannot wait to get to the next round. No idea how this is going to play out. This is such a massive gift to us. So that's what we just had.
I couldn't agree more. I think it was just what IndyCar is in this real happy place is in a single series like Formula E. Some of its criticism is it has that chaos, it has that unpredictability, but not necessarily within the, if people consistently run it's necessarily going to push the top guys to the top. What was the best thing about this season is you had unpredictability in going into the rounds because you had so many guys competitive, but you can't argue that other than Colton Herta, who statistically was probably the best driver this year with the 3 pole positions, 3 wins, and I think he had a couple of fastest laps under as well. So you're like, you know, key performance indicators, you go, that guy's probably in the championship fight, and wasn't. Got obviously a top 5 in the end from there. But you look at Newgarden, Palou and Pato, and you can't argue that they were 3 of the best drivers this season, which is the perfect thing. You had standout performance like VK, the Indy GP one. You had Elio Castroneves, Indy 500 win. You had Will Power still showing what he can do at the Indy GP too. But the best guys who were consistent over the season worked their way to the top of the grid. And yeah, it was a season that kept you on the edge of the seat within races, but like you said, going postseason as well. But Steve, what was your thoughts? I just, what did you think?
I mean, you two haven't left me much to talk about.
I mean, that's the thing of putting you last. You just go, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, those guys. Well, my biggest takeaway is probably the coming of age of so many guys. We've said it, Palou winning the championship, enough said. Pato finally getting his first win. He showed a lot of potential last year. But he finally got that first win after coming so close so many times. Finally got it.
For the record, Marshall, Stephen is a very big Pato fan. So the cheering that went on that Texas race too was like, Pato, Pato, Pato.
It's funny because Pato said he cannot stand Stephen. So that's really quite a surprise.
Yeah. This is awkward. It's
brutal.
We end it now. Stephen's going to have to mourn. He's going to have to find someone else to talk about.
How am I going to recover from this?
He had his whole Pato script written out now, and that's out the window.
You can
Pato
show
was
us
the worst driver this year.
Go ahead and show us the Pato mural. Your back tattoo, Stephen. You can let us see that. Come on, mate. Come on.
No, we have to. That's it's a different website. Banned. It's a different website, Marshall, for that. Yeah, different website.
Only Stephen fans. Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
I've heard mention.
Unbelievable. But somewhere in the thing, you were going through a run there.
Colton Herta as well. I know he's a race winner before, but this year he was just on another level, and another level that no one could really match at some races.
I think, like Marshall said, there were literally times in Colton Herta where, like Nashville, he didn't win the race, but he was so much better than anyone. He was flying pace, and everyone's like, what is this guy doing?
I mean, that qualifying performance at Nashville is best of the season. Like, he absolutely cleared the rest of the field. It was nuts. But yeah, Colton Herta, and then my last of the young guys coming of age, of course, Reminice VK, who, although he dropped off second half season following his cycling accident.
You want to get your line in, as you always do?
He just wasn't the same after it.
Just wasn't the same after.
But the first half of the season, VK, he looked great. And also getting his first victory at the Indy road course was fantastic. So yeah, that's my main takeaway of this year, was the coming of age of the young stars.
Yeah. Newgarden and Dixon dominance had been broken. They're like, sit down. You've had your 4 years of kind of going, it's time for the new guys.
Yeah,
exactly. Newgarden, you darn 30-year-old. You're
you middle-aged, middle kids. That was the line, wasn't it?
Glue factory for you, Newgarden.
Yeah.
The VK one is fascinating. I don't know if we'll get an answer. They don't like me anymore because I was too honest with them about his poop show decision at Gateway. But regardless, that is one of the bigger curiosities to try and understand. Would I ascribe his tapering off in the first couple of races coming back from the broken collarbone to possibly that injury? We know how physical the cars are. No power steering. Again, you're in a boxing match with the car the entire time on road street courses. So could we suggest, or I should say assume incorrectly possibly, but could we wouldn't be insane to ponder if slight lack of strength, not that he not necessarily lost muscular strength, but just if you don't have the full ability to use the musculature and bones and the levers, and if you're unable to do everything the way you were while recovering, could see that possibly being as a little bit of a hindrance speed-wise. But there were just some places as we got towards the end of the season where you say, all right, well, that incident happened middle-ish of June. We're now 2+ months beyond that. This shouldn't really be a thing we even consider as a real physical limitation. And yet there are some races where, to my surprise, admittedly, Reminice is behind Connor Daly. And that's not speaking ill of Connor by any means, just I think Reminice is a particularly special talent. The fact that Connor was the lead performer to close the season over the last couple of rounds. And so that's by, looking at the actual finishing results to make that sure that that's not just an opinion, but an actual numerical fact. But that stood out to me as well. Is there something setup-wise that changed within the team, development-wise with the car? Was there an approach to damping that changed and didn't agree with Reminice's needs in a way that maybe it did with Connor's? I'm just throwing out generalisms here, no real specific intel on this, but that was a weird one for me because give him a couple of races grace in terms of recovering from broken collarbone, but what surprised me the most was where did that guy go, as Stephen mentioned, who was there the first, not necessarily full 50% of the year, but the first 40-ish% of the year where you could not get that guy out of the top 10. And all of a sudden when he came back, you couldn't get him in the top 10 and sometimes way the heck out of the top 10. Truly a season of two polar opposite portions for him. And yeah, hopefully some of those within his greater realm who aren't afraid to speak to me might tell me exactly what was happening.
I mean, it very could easily, I think it's like with anything, it's never black or white. It's never, you can never nail it down to one specific reason of what it goes on. But I think it led from that accident that then led to kind of poor performances. Like you said, the physical cars, how rough they are on it, and not having, even taking time to recover from those injuries, even though he is fit to race, was he truly fit to race? And then that affects his confidence because he's not able to do the things in the car. And like I said, the team had Connor Daly. So then Connor Daly was the guy who was leading the road and street courses on the set up front. Was that something, that went in a different direction? And obviously with anything in life, it was probably a culminating of factors that led to the bizarreness of it. I would be surprised. I imagine that it will be just something that it ticks off. I would be surprised if we didn't see a massive VK bounce back in the first half of next season, but you never know with these things. You do never know. Like you said, he does feel like he's got a special talent element about him, certainly by what he's done in the series so far.
Amen. What's next, fellas?
Well, Stephen.
Pato just texted, by the way, and said he only mildly disliked Stephen. So I had to correct that.
Yes, so the next part is our Rookie of the Year and their performance of the year.
And they can be separate. So they don't have to, rookie performance of the year doesn't have to go with your Rookie of the Year. Obviously, Scott McLaughlin was the official Rookie of the Year. But yeah, your thoughts, Marshall?
Terrible. Doesn't belong in the series.
Drivers, weren't they? Terrible.
Possibly the worst decision Roger Penske's ever made. It's interesting, yet another interesting facet of the year. Without a doubt, Scotty had the proverbial sophomore slump in what was his first season. But it's only possible to have a slump when you are outperforming reasonable expectations. And so that's the kind of underhanded compliment to pay. This is a guy, again, I realize that he did St. Petersburg last year, so this was not technically his first ever race, first ever anything in IndyCar. But if you think about how he performed on his first oval race, finishing second of all things, phenomenal. If you think about how he performed at the first Indy Grand Prix event, solid top 10. Took a little while to get back to the top 10. Oddly enough, the next one came at another oval. So here we are where the fine American tradition of turning left and turn left and turn left and turn left and turning left, the antithesis of what a lifelong road racer knows how to do. Just yet again, another, proof that if you can do that, and if you can excel in this discipline that takes years to grasp, and you can do that right away as he did, you know that he's working with some very significant talent. It's also a bit more of a singular thing, though, and that's maybe often overlooked, guys. So if we think about your traditional road and street course race, a lot of side-by-side stuff, entering a corner, not a lot of side-by-side cornering, but it's a lot of jostling and jockeying and moving around and probing and trying to make stuff happen. You're seemingly always in or around some cluster of cars while racing, while cornering or entering and leaving them. Not as if that can't or doesn't happen in ovals, but it's a little bit more pure in that way quite often. When we go to a gateway, you're going to have however many laps you're doing on a stint. You'll be chasing or you'll be chased, and you'll be trying to get by people and, doing all that normal stuff. But it's a little bit more of a singular thing where you don't have a lot of cars trying to go left and right that you have to adjust for every corner, as we often have in road racing. And so I think that's the cool part that tells us about a driver. You say, all right, so strip out a lot of the constant noise that you would have at a road and street course, and let's see how you operate with rhythm in getting to lap 10, 15, 20, 30 laps, whatever it might be, maybe more. And you're just having to build lap by lap and react sometimes as the guy you're chasing, the woman you're chasing, the tires are going off, fuel balances, altering the car's performances. Let's see how you work yourself into that more singular rhythm. Pretty cool then to see someone like McLaughlin reveal themselves as someone who can absolutely excel with that challenge. The lifelong road racer, though, you would say, well, wouldn't that be the place where he naturally goes to the front? There's a lot more going on there. There's so many more judgments needing to be made per lap. If you're at a 10 corner circuit, think about all those little decisions you're having to make, all the times you're having to depress the brake, depress the throttle, turn the steering wheel, adjust brake bias, adjust front or rear anti-roll bars, deal with everyone else trying to get by you, trying to save fuel, blah, blah, blah. It's one of those things where you're never in a state of pure comfort. And so while learning a car and learning those tracks for the first time, not a surprise to me that someone who's super new to open wheel cars excels on the ovals, does decent on a smaller number of road and street courses, struggles on some others, but gives us a general impression that they have a lot of talent. They just need time. Then you flip that to Romain, who has a lifetime of experience in open wheel. This open wheel car that he's driving is actually less demanding on his talents than the ones that he's left behind in Formula One. So not a surprise. He's right up towards the front almost immediately. When he gets to his very first oval, well, knowing that kind of singular challenge that I mentioned with a lot of the kind of noise and busyness turned down, the ability for him, even in his first race, getting to kind of focus in on himself and learn and not have to pay heavy mistakes for those, or pay heavily for the mistakes that he made. He demonstrated that he was super talented, just as we thought he would be in that environment. So I think we've been really blessed with the two. I think Scott has what did he have? Like 4 or so top 10s this year. If next year we're not talking 8 or 10 top 10s with 1 or 2 of those on road courses that are closer to the top 6, I'll be very surprised. A win is always possible by any driver. So, that to me is not really a measurement to throw out waiting for him to live up to. But I don't feel like he's going to go win a race next year based on just natural speed. It'd have to be an exceptional thing. But if we're talking 2023, I think if he keeps on the growth arc that he's on, absolutely believe Scott McLaughlin can win on merit alone. Last little thing I'll mention here on the rookie side, thing about Romain, which will be, this will be something for folks to watch. And I'm not saying this to be critical just for the sake of, but if you followed Formula One for quite some time, Romain and his history. And he has had a number of exceptional days in Grand Prix competition and a number of days that weren't necessarily exceptional. And it was kind of a 50-50. You're not sure what you're going to get from him. Is it the absent-minded, error-prone driver? Or is it the everyone just get out of the way, this guy's charging to the front? We know how talented he is. That's not the question. It's the consistency that has always been a bit of a hindrance to Romain being held in higher regard and being pursued by bigger teams. We saw a little bit of that this year. And his story, the Phoenix, as he likes to call himself, that story is incredibly powerful. I think that also, and again, we're just being honest here, I think it maybe also clouded a little bit of the, yeah, right, I know that all this is new, I know all these things, but there are still a few of those errors where you go, yeah, that feels a little familiar. That didn't feel too necessary in the moment. How did that happen? Few too many of those. So if you keep in mind that he had an excellent first season, was on the podium, 3 times, had a pole or 2, at least one that I recall. Like, he had a phenomenal year with a midfield team. So he deserves all the credit we can give while missing 3 races, if we're talking where he ended up in the standings. What I'm looking for from him next year is no change to the good, just some of that consistency of, yeah, you sure did hit that wall at a point in time in the race where there was no real reason to be pushing that hard there. How do we take some of those negative finishes off the board so that he can truly elevate himself into, championship contender status? Just moving to Andretti Autosport isn't going to solve all problems. It's a little bit of that kind of Marcus Erickson, hey, a little bit later in your career, Sato as well, right? I know this past year wasn't great for him, but some of that, look, there are some new tricks that can be learned later in your career. If Romain can clean up that bit just a little, we're going to have a pretty awesome 2022 with him in the number 28 DHL Honda.
Agree. Stephen, your thoughts on the ponders of Marshall there?
Well, Roman's probably, I think Scott did do an incredible job. We did a top 10. And I did put Scott in the top 10 because I thought he did do, even though Penske, other than Joseph, kind of struggled throughout most of the season, I felt Scott drove very well for a rookie. But Roman Grosjean was definitely my rookie of the year. And his performance, I think my favorite performance from him was at Laguna Seca, where he was just in full send-it mode. I know he had that bit of a tangle with Jimmy going into the corkscrew, but he was just so fun to watch. And a bit like him at Gateway as well. He was just so fun to watch. Just
got a text from Scott McLaughlin, Stephen, who said you can go straight to hell. So give me that update.
Oh no, I'm making so many enemies.
By the end of this podcast, Stephen's not going to have any friends within it. Indy Fanatics is retiring after this episode as Stephen has pissed off the entire paddock.
Just saying, you might start looking for a new co-host, but don't even hear that.
Marshall, you got any names? Just let send me an email. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, guys.
Oh dear. Well, I think you make very interesting points. I think Scott McLaughlin, like we said, just to round off on him, this was his first competitive season in single-seater in his entire career. Like, he hasn't even had a really substantial karting career coming up. It was mainly kind of in those kind of supercars, and that kind of ladder system over in Australia was his kind of racing background. So I think going from that is a huge difference. I think, people never kind of truly appreciate the difference in how it is. Obviously, a racing driver is a racing driver, but driving different categories and styles of motorsport, just because you're good in one doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate into effectiveness in both. And like you say, he showed it in that oval performance on Texas, coming behind Scott Dixon of all people from there, and being pretty close at the end. To be fair, it wasn't like Scott blitzed it. He was there or thereabouts. I wasn't sure. I can't remember if there was a late caution that did bunch up it a little bit, but it still take nothing away. It was an incredible performance. But yeah, Grosjean was interesting. I think mostly where you come from there in hitting the walls from memory through the season, it was street courses. And with Grosjean in his F1 time, it was street courses as well. And being in a car that wasn't quite at the front of the grid, Grosjean is maybe that driver who I always go, when those guys are driving in a car that isn't quite that top package, it's 2-3 tenths off the top, whatever, however the gap is. Obviously, it's closer in IndyCar. It was much bigger with this Haas in Formula One. But you've got to be driving much closer to the edge 100, 110% of the time, where, those guys like a Herta, when they're dominating, can afford to be driving still lightning quick, but about 80 to 85% of their capacity, because they know the cars beneath them and what they can do. And Grosjean, I think, falls into that category of when he's pushing on that edge of 100, 110%, almost trying to push a little too far. That is where those mistakes have come. And it's going to be a while since that Lotus time in 2012, 2013 with Andretti. They look like they're getting back in that package of being one of the top runners in the team. Obviously, Colton Herta has been able to challenge for wins. Rossi's had a torrid time and the kind of past 2 seasons with it. But it is a car that is capable of challenge for wins. It's going to be interesting how he adapts to being in a team that is capable of doing that again, which obviously he hasn't really been in since 2013.
Yeah, and I'll just share one thing, and I always try and be clear on this. Any notion that a professional driver is anywhere below about 98% to 98.5% driving on every single lap is an absolute inaccuracy. There's no point in time Colton Herta has ever done 80 or 85%, unless maybe we're talking while following behind a pace car during a caution period. With the style of cars that we've had for quite some time, this is both Formula One, IndyCar, you name it, the reliability that they are possessed of allows for drivers to not have to conserve. So just as a fact, when we see Colton Herta dominating, or when we see Colton Herta running 15th, the kid is driving as hard as he possibly can. There could be a proviso. Hey, we need you to save some fuel. Great. Doesn't mean he's driving less hard. Just means he's having to make adapt speed in an incredible capacity while not being able to use the throttle completely freely. But just as, again, a quick aside, Colton Herta dominating at Laguna Seca, that's him driving as hard as he possibly can, again, while dealing with maybe some challenges of having to save some fuel or do whatever it is. But yeah, I wish these folks could take a little bit of an easier time. But what you see separating them at the top is someone's 100% versus another person's 100%. Why aren't they running equal lap times and side by side? It's how much did that second driver miss their braking point here. It might be 3 feet. It might be almost an imperceptible amount, but it threw them off just a little bit at the apex where their rolling speed was down half a mile an hour. All these little tiny, almost imperceptible things where you go, Pato Ward is no more or less talented than Colton Herta, then Scott Dixon, then Newgarden, then again, run down the list, right? All the ones where we know these are the baddest of badasses. But what makes one a little bit better than the other over a season or over a career? It's if they're all operating at that same peak level, it's what are the little mistakes? What are the little errors in judgment, right? Hey, I can get by this person here. They see me. Oh, no, they don't. The door is closed. And I just lost 4 car lengths and the chance of victory. The talent is still there at the same level. The effort is still there at 100%. But it's, again, some of these little things where you go, had Romain not chucked the thing down the inside of Jimmy Johnson and had that little clash, which tacked on, I don't know what it was. I'm guessing 2, 3, 4 seconds, whatever, to slow him on that lap. And then you look at where he finished and you go, that little thing probably is what made the difference between him having an even better day than the one that he had. And so not criticizing him, just saying there's no doubt Romain was on fire and that made Laguna Seca an amazing race to finish. But you subtract that little error in judgment, his outcome's different. So again, it's the little granular things where you go, aha, these are badass operators, but what are the little tiny deficits that add up to why one person's third on a day instead of second or first, and how does that play out over the year? So, always fun to look after.
No, I think so, and thanks for kind of checking up on that one, Marshall. In terms of because it is elite sport is those fine margins, isn't it? It's It is the tiny, like the superhumans that they are. I mean, you talk to them and they're normal guys, but what they do on a racetrack is kind of almost superhuman-esque and from other elite sports as well. And yeah, it is. It's that consistency of decision making, and it's why Scott Dixon is a 6-time champion, because he always finds a way to navigate those situations so well. And that consistency is what makes a great champion and a difference to what makes a one-time champion or a nearly champion. Absolutely. So,
that's a whole extra podcast for us to do. About some of the recent.
Sorry, how long did you have, Marshall? Champs. We're doing this 6-hour one here.
Yes, no, but I'm just saying, like, those are the things that fascinate me almost the most, guys, because you do this long enough, and there are some items that feel they're a little bit repetitive. It's normal, right? Folks sitting in their cubicle at their job right now, listening to this or watching this, are probably nodding their head going, yes, this feels like I've been coming here my entire life and I'm only 25 years old. The things that keep my mind going and keep me fresh with doing this reporting thing year after year is just like what I mentioned. You go, wow, okay, Scott Dixon, you just had, for the first time since Dario Franchitti 10 years ago in 2011, you just had a teammate beat you to the championship for the first time. What is that? Why? He didn't forget how to drive. Engineer didn't forget how to engineer, and so on and so forth. What is it? Is this just an aberration? Or at 40, 41-ish, is this the first sign of where we saw Romain view Jimmy Johnson as prey and have the fire and willingness to chuck his car down the inside, knowing that there could be a repercussion, but it could also end in glory if Jimmy gets out of the way. And maybe that's the thing that gives him the advantage to go chase down everybody and win the race. Is that the first hint that, faced with that situation, put Dixie in that scenario? Obviously, I don't know if he'd do that to a teammate, but just put Dixon at that scenario and someone he needed to get by. We know he is predisposed to make that hard charging pass, but inevitably there's that thing where the driver who's been doing it at the high level for 20 years, 30, whatever, eventually says, I know the risks there. I probably won't live to fight another day. And you go, aha. So is that the first little hint of leaving a tiny scrap on the table? So that's not 100%, right, guys? That's 99 point whatever you want to say. But is that the first sign that now you're kind of operating just a few tenths off of that 100% that the others are, the quote younger ones, the new Lions? Again, I'm not saying that's the fact or even the least bit accurate. Those are the things I look at and start to wonder about and go, this was a non-Dixon-esque year. He was up there, won, was in the mix. I didn't see a true stomp a mud hole into everybody performance from Dixon this year like we normally do. That's weird. Is that real? Is this the indicator of a change, of that inevitable slowing down that happens in every driver's long career? Or was this year just an aberration and we're going to see Dixie next year decimate everybody and say, nope, sorry, young punk Pelot, you got one off of me. You're never going to get another one while I'm still a full-time driver. I don't know the answer to that, but those are the things that I look at, guys, and say, can't wait for February to get here.
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat in those questions, yeah, and that's been in our comments a lot as well. It's that Dixon are going, yeah, and Dixon is always their enigma because when drivers get to an age, because otherwise we would have been seeing, say Michael Schumacher never retired in Formula One, and obviously relevant accident as well never happened. Would he just race into his 60s, 70s? You would have seen the likes of Prost just race on and on and on. There is a point where it just isn't there anymore. And is this that point for Dixon? Or like you said, is it go from there? And I think that probably leads, we'll switch around a little bit and bring up a surprise performer of the season, positive or negative, I think, from that. And that Scott Dixon is definitely one of those. Like I said, Dixon S, was it the Indy 500? Since 2008. Look, to win the Indy 500 once is an incredible life-changing achievement. So to have an opportunity to win it twice is almost unimaginable for most who kind of give it the effort of doing it. But, having that pole position, having looked so good on there, and then having something out of his control really with that caution, and hey, that's just the luck of racing. Sometimes they don't fall your way. Was that kind of just distilled and never allowed him to get enough momentum going, because the double points swing can play a big effect, and 17th wasn't great from there. But surprise performer of the season for me, there were so many, I think, is the hardest one to go from there. Alex Palou was a surprise performer. I was surprised how well Roman Nesri adapted. I expected maybe some top 10 performances, but obviously that pole position at IMS on the first, his only third race within the series as well, was great within that. From poor Scott Dixon, maybe the Joseph Newgarden start to the season was a big surprise, or a surprise that Colton Herta wasn't in the championship. But I guess biggest surprise was the way you started off with point was Alex Palou, I think, for me, winning the championship and being in championship contention, winning that first race, and he never really looked back from there. But Stephen, what was similar sort of surprise moment of the season for
nice
you?
And boring. Alex Palou. No one saw it coming. You'd have to be a madman to go, Alex Palou, move into Chip Ganassi. He's going to win the championship, and he's going to
knock off the reigning champion at Chip Ganassi Racing. He's going to knock off the reigning six-timer.
Exactly. You'd be completely mad to go, Alex was going to do it.
Especially that history of that 10 car with Dario Franchitti, like we said, no one has done it within Scott, within that team. He's had good drivers, drive alongside him and just haven't really got close. And like you said, going into season, it was a doubt on Alex Palou's talent. I think the highest anyone did in our predictions video was a 4th place. And maybe that was, we didn't I didn't even think he would make top 5. I don't think, from there. So to go and blitz the championship was crazy.
Exactly, yeah.
I remember having a fun conversation with Alex at Laguna Seca last November with his first test for the team. And it was fun because, I told him outright, like, they have no idea what they're getting. Like, they're not going to say that publicly, but I'm just telling you, they have no expectations for you. They have hopes, but they have no expectations, because in order to have expectations, you have to have an idea of what's possible. And they have no idea what's possible. So it's one of the most non-Ganassi scenarios that I can recall. And again, that's not saying anything negative. It's actually just surprised. I mean, I recall them hiring Ari Leyendijk to drive a super long time ago, and I thought, that's interesting. We know what we're going to get from Ari. A little bit long into his career here. I don't know how much. You're not expecting a championship, but you can expect, some decent results. Remember when they hired Michael Andretti? It was like, oh, that's a really great move. You can absolutely have high expectations, but the team is still too new for you all to be able to deliver a championship for him. And we can run through a variety of other decisions. Maybe the only time I can think would have been 2000. Was it 2000 or 2001? I always forget, with Bruno Junqueira and Nicholas Manassian, Quick Nick. And I mean, those two were young badasses of what was then Formula 3000, what we call Formula 2 today. I mean, these were like, whoa, massive talents coming over here. They didn't have immediate Formula 1 options, but they were certainly Formula 1 caliber and quality Formula 1 team caliber drivers. And Nick just didn't pan out, barely lasted half a season. Bruno stayed and was able to forge a career, but that was the last time, basically 20 years ago, when Chip Ganassi Racing hired one or more drivers where you went, okay, so they're going to be your team leaders? What? Or half of your team leaders? Or And so with that massive question mark, yeah, I mean, Alex has to be like, not just this year's surprise performer. This might be IndyCar all-time surprise. You just did what? So, I mean, I think he had something like 10 top 4 finishes. It's ridiculous to think about what he did from a consistency standpoint. You think about not just the 3 wins, but the seconds and the thirds. The big surprise performance for him of the year came at Portland. We'd never seen Alex go into kill destroy mode, right? We'd seen him be fast. We'd seen him win. There was the first 2 wins involved a little bit of adversity. At the first round, Pato looked like he was going to be in a charge. Things fell through a little bit there for him. Obviously, Joseph's gearbox gave him the middle finger late in the race. So, Alex was running second. That would have been a quality second, but we had yet to see I'm going to go out and tell you I am the freaking man type performance. He chucks that thing onto pole. Obviously, there's a lot of, wackiness that happened at Portland, but nonetheless, strategy plays out perfectly, wins the race, re-energizes things after Pato had grabbed the championship lead, backs that up with a fine second place at Laguna Seca. I mean, that Laguna Seca is what did all the work right there between Portland and Laguna back to back. The mental fortitude, like all the pressure on his shoulders, knowing that, again, his teammate Dixie, been the team leader forever, not so much in title contention once we got down to those last couple of rounds. You think Chip Ganassi is just like sending him flowers and blowing him kisses? Hell no. He's letting him know, if we're going to win, it's going to be you. Don't F it up. He showed us so much to close the season, withstand all the pressure, deliver big when he needed it, and made a big statement. Like, there's some cool stuff that he did that makes me happy about his future. We need to see more of those Portlands, right? He needs to do 1 or 2 of those early in the season next year, I think, to really let us know that he's gotten all of it. Obviously, he needs to win on an oval. I don't think that feels like an impossibility, but yeah, this last little stupid note about Alex Palou. He just finished his second year in IndyCar. He's 24 years old. How much growth potential for improvement lives within him? If he's this good now, the last driver that comes to mind where you could say matched this same kind of, you just did what in the first year or two of your career? Scott Dixon, right? That's the last one who showed us this vibe. I'm not saying Palou is the next Dixon, but man, the last one to do it like this, so young, so early, and then go on and get better year after year and add to it with more accolades. That's the greatest active IndyCar driver we have. I'll give you guys two more in the opposite direction of the surprises, and then I got to go and tend to some things here in the home front.
No problem at all, Marshall. We do appreciate, obviously, all the time.
You're paying
go from
so
there.
much for
I
this.
think just rounding off on that, Dixon, I think we coined the phrase during the year that Palou was out Dixoning Dixon. And it seems quite funny that they seem to have stumbled across almost maybe the guy to fill in the boots and take Chip Ganassi forward into the next decade in a period where probably going into the season, it wasn't really clear what the future plan was post-Dixon for Ganassi Racing.
100%. I mean, they've been trying to map that for a little while. Not that they're planning to get rid of Dixie, obviously, but just, hey, we haven't had that Dario and Dixie combination since Dario had to retire. And so they've been searching unsuccessfully to find that person. And the kid they hired, where they had no expectations for him and had no clue how he would fit in, reveals himself to be that one. Like, it's just, again, it's from a storytelling arc. This stuff is amazing. But the two that stood out on the opposite of the happy, smiley, surprise level, I would say Ed Jones and Felix Rosenquist for sure. Felix for sure, because he had Pato O'Ward as the benchmark within the team. And when your teammate is chucking the thing on pole at round one and rallies back to finish fourth, and you have a very unfortunate weekend that ends with you in 21st, and then that improves from there. But again, he's still in the low teens finish wise, 12th, 13th, 14th, whatever, while Pato is out there doing thirds and firsts and fourths and thirds and firsts. It just got a bit ugly early. Obviously, Felix had that nasty crash, which, unfairly, not his fault, but that came off of a brutal start to the season. Things did start to improve. He was able to, make more sense of the car than he was able to. That's going to be a big off-season project for the team. I think I'd be surprised if the number 7 Aero McLaren SP Chevy came back with a slightly different look on the timing stand. Not at all. Would I be surprised if a significant amount of time and money was spent to develop the car a bit so it is not so pro Pato and more something that Felix can drive as well? I'm not saying the team did something intentionally negative towards Felix. Obviously, Pato is someone they carried into the season, they had experience with, so naturally that would be a direction you'd go. Felix new to the team, not exactly someone they know how to shape the car around. So I think he's going to have a much better season next year, but this one was a bit of a surprise of, wow, it's like they're on two different teams. It's like Pato's on a front running team and Felix is mired in the middle of the pack with a midfielder. That part was strange. I got to admit, though, Ed Jones was the biggest surprise for me in a sad way because, privately, I may or may not have been asked to offer some insights on potential drivers for the car, and I was 100% Team Ed, advocated hard for him just as an outside opinion because I thought his talents, that's not the question, but I just thought that he was going to be able to do more and elevate more. Maybe a little bit of that same dynamic, guys, of like we spoke about with Pato and Felix, where, hey, you've got a rookie teammate in Romain Grosjean. Granted, he's a very talented and experienced Formula One driver, but this guy's got everything to learn, and yet it's kind of handing you your backside right away. And that never really let up. There were some places, obviously, where Ed was able to get close, even outperform once or twice. And if it wasn't in a race, it might have been in qualifying or practice or something. But really surprised that a young, fast, capable, and smart veteran like Ed just looked so out to sorts almost everywhere we went. He did rally towards the end of the year. I think top 12 the last 3 rounds. And he did put in some solid performances here and there. No argument, but that really surprised me, knowing how well the sister car was doing with a guy who'd never been to anywhere and had no frame of reference for anything. Yeah, I feel bad for Ed because this is the 3rd team now where it has ended not exactly leading to the next great thing, an opportunity for him the following year. When his Ed Carpenter Racing tenure was up, I thought he was done. And for him to get a chance here to come back, I thought was great. Can you guys think of any team that would be calling Ed saying, please come drive our car next year? I can't. And that makes me sad.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point on Ed. And Ed was like an enigma all year because there were definitely, I think, bright sparks within that. But I think, like you say, despite Roman's F1 background, Ed really should have had all the cards in his favour going into that, and being in the Vassar-Sullivan side of entry, which felt like the more secure entry. It's obviously the one that Bourdais had, brought so much success for in his time with the Delco. And obviously Ed partnered him in the 19 in his rookie season when he had that, showed his talent, showed his thing. And he just never has really been able to recapture that rookie season form on a consistent basis. And yeah, that is sad. And, you've got the Kirkwoods coming up, the Malukas, and then obviously now Formula 2 guys are looking to come into the picture. Callum Ilott securing that full-time seat with Juncos Hollinger Racing, and, Christian Lundgaard's maybe not. I mean, you probably have more of a know-how of where the seats are coming in. I feel it's maybe Ferrucci or Askew for that 45 seat. But, Lundgaard didn't hurt his chances exactly with his qualifying performance at the Indy GP. And Tickton, rumours go away. These guys are now starting to be more of an option. And then suddenly, guys, it basically means there's more guys for the limited seats. And then Ed Jones gets I've had my chance. Maybe then people have had a look at him. They know he's a known quantity. And unfortunately, his known quantity is probably not enough, like you said, for any team to look at him and go, let's give this guy a shot. Indeed. Right. So we'll round off as a kind of best moment and conclusion of it. So we round off from there. So what was, I'll let Stephen go first. I'll let you jump in then, Marshall, and then I'll round things off on today. Thank you for obviously so much of your time as well. So Stephen, best moment of the season and your concluding thoughts on what has been a brilliant 2021 year.
Okay, I'm going to go for 2. Personal. Potter winning at Texas. That was fantastic to see. Obviously, last year it was so many, so close yet so far. And then we started with Barber. He got pole, and then it just didn't go together. I was like, oh no, it's going to happen again. It's going to be another season of so close. And then he absolutely smashed Air Texas. Just flew it, sent it. So that's my personal favorite moment of the season.
Do you have an impersonal favorite since you're qualifying it with a personal favorite?
Exactly. And then other favorite moment, it's got to be Elio winning the 500, I think. That was such an incredible moment to witness. Obviously, we weren't there live. It would have been incredible to be there live. But even just watching on the TV, seeing a guy win his 4th Indy 500 with a new team.
Yeah, you knew you were a part of history.
Yeah.
just watching, if not for those lucky people who were there, I mean, 46 years old, leaving the most successful team in Indy 500 history, who would have given him a chance?
Exactly. So, yeah.
I will go, since Stephen, you have chosen Elio. I will go with, why don't we go for a little bit of a B-side, a little bit of a deep track here. I will go for Grosjean's pole and second place at the Indy Grand Prix. He was visibly disappointed to have not won. But what I loved about that result is the light in his eyes and the visible recognition that the thing he probably felt was no longer possible for the last 3, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it was, of his Formula One career. Say farewell to being competitive. Seeing that light come into his eyes, have it proven through his actual finishing result, and going and standing on the podium, and the cheers that were waiting for him in the grandstands. Like, seeing that incredibly long cloud that had lingered overhead, and the weight, the doubt, right? Every driver, quality pro driver, has a lot of self-belief. You also get to a point, though, after years and years of never visiting the podium, or just, fighting your balls off for 14th place at Baku or wherever it might be, you go, I just don't know if this can be a reality for me again. So just that little moment, I thought that was such a beautiful little grace note on the season of this guy coming out of the flames last year, recreating himself in North America among strange and different people with strange and different cars and tracks, the total lack of familiarity of everything. Seeing him have that little moment with himself of like, oh, this could be real again. I can have a reason to dream of these kinds of things happening again. And though that not being hope, that not being just an intangible thing, but this could actually be my new reality of being competitive again and showing folks I'm capable of being the fastest, almost winning, and hopefully winning as well. I thought that was a really cool thing for him.
Yeah. I mean, you've stitched me. Stephen's taken the big moment, and Grosjean's pole was another moment from there. So as you stitched me, I'm going to take some liberty on my one and go with Colton
Kellett.
Colton Herta. Yeah, Dalton Kellett. Oh, don't bring out that was an awkward one.
Dalton Herta.
Colton Herta, I think the performance in Nashville, that qualifying performance, showed, like you said, it's scary at times what he can do, that it was almost like the other guys were on a different racetrack, that they weren't on the same field. But also we interviewed Colton going into the kind of last 3 rounds, and he said to us, personal target is to win 2 out of the last 3 rounds. He won them, at Laguna Seca thing. But I think he was overwhelming favourite going into Laguna Seca, and at, 21 years old, to just have the conviction to go and win Laguna Seca in the way that he did. Like, everyone was just like, look, Colton Herta, he won last time out Laguna Seca in 2019. Herta's a great there, but this is a track we expect Herta to win. And he went and delivered. And I think that was maybe the maturing of Colton Herta going into 2022, if the car backs it up, and all his little percentages that went quite wrong go his way next year, that he was able to deliver with conviction when it mattered, and then obviously followed it up the next week at Long Beach, having not a great qualifying performance, going at 14th on a street course, which, you know, are notoriously harder to make your way through the field, to first, leading the most laps, and again looking conviction dominant there. So that would be my moment. Colton in kind of those three moments in one encapsulated moment.
Steven's idea was better. He sticks the landing to close the show, even though his favorite driver.
Damn it, we should have done it.
Don't like him. He wins the episode. So Steven, good on you, mate.
There you go. You've done it. Unbelievable. But yeah, Marshall, it's been absolutely fascinating. Fantastic reminiscing on this season. Yeah, I suppose fascinating as well, because like you said, it was a season full of intrigue. Like, you've been involved with the sport so many years that this is a season that keeps you hungry and desperate for February to come around and go, I can't wait to see what the next chapter of IndyCar is going to be. I can't wait to see how these storylines that have developed in 2021 are going to lead on. So I just, appreciate you sharing so much time, and hopefully all the listeners and viewers at home have enjoyed what we've done. And it's been fantastic.
You're getting choked up because I'm on the show. That is so cute.
It's getting all emotional over here.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the invite, obviously. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate the two of you, appreciate your passion for this crazy form of American motor racing, but most of all, keep doing what you're doing. It's fun. You guys obviously pay a lot of attention, and, you know, well researched, and are spotting a lot of really good things to conversate about, as I use an improper term. But keep doing what you're doing, guys. Seriously, there are a lot of know that we try and make this as family friendly as possible, but as my departed colleague Robin Miller would say, there's a lot of slapdicks doing stuff like this, and it's not the least bit worthy of anyone's time. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Please keep doing it, and love the momentum you're building.
Thank you so much, Marshall. We really appreciate it. And hey, at the end of the day, we're all racing fans. We, as we confess, new to racing fans, but we've fallen in love with the IndyCar category, and talking to you and just getting a little kind of peephole into that knowledge and information is stuff that we just really enjoy doing, and hopefully our listeners and viewers enjoy as well. And we're not going anywhere, because we're two idiots on the internet who just kind of keep popping up whether you like us or not. So I guess they're stuck with it.
That's a heck of a hashtag right there. That should be your new hashtag. Hashtag two idiots on the internet. There you go.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's short, compact, brilliant. Love it. There. Right.
All right,
but
guys.
Yes, that is it for today's show. We've massively enjoyed it. Thank you again, Marshall, so much for coming on. But for you now, you Indy fans, keep racing.